Hi, good afternoon, good morning for some of us here in the West Coast. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Francis DiCastro from KW Los Feliz here in Los Angeles. I am one of the founding members for KW Pan Asia Network. I also serve as the president for the KWYP SoCal chapter and also the regional ambassador. You want to thank and welcome everyone for coming today. Today's panel is really, really near and dear to my heart. Um, I myself, I work pretty heavily with my community here in Los Angeles. And so, coming here and talking about our community is something that I really, really, really enjoy. And I want to start off by introducing our panelists. So, let me just start off and whoever's next to my screen. So, Linda, can you talk about yourself and your business and who you are?
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Linda Lee from San Diego. Have been in business over 22 years. Absolutely love under Gary Keller's leadership. And Caroline, I just joined Luxury Pro finally, and I have my I know Julia has mentioned this already. I actually in this challenging market, I challenged myself this year to break my own records. So in April, I break my own best record. So in April, I closed over 15 million and over 372,000 GCI. Of course, everybody want to ask how many units. There was in 9 units. So I want to break that record. I call that going forward. My goal was 500,000 GCI a month. So that would be, I would continue to work towards that. And I really want to thank the panel, thank Julia, thank KWI for the opportunity to be on this panel and to cheer everyone up. And we can definitely get our unfair share of this market and continue to move forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Next, Amy Wu.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Wu. I'm with Keller Williams Success Realty in Barrington, Illinois, which is about an hour from Chicago. I have to give a shout out to my team leader and CEO because I see her on here. Hi, Natalie Hartman. Love you. This is my 5th year with Keller Williams, also my 5th year in the real estate business. And I do both residential and commercial. Our median sales price point in the Chicagoland area is about 350,000. My year to date for 2024 is about 9 million. I serve on the Chicago Association's board of directors, as well as the immediate past chair for our Young Professionals Network. And I'm also on the Illinois Realtors Leadership Development Program for 2024. Nice to see you all.
And next up, Caroline.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Kuo. I am based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. And before I introduce myself, I just want to thank Julia for your incredible leadership. This is not an easy role, and you're making it just so seamless and just so wonderful for the rest of the company. You're a role model for so many of us, and not just with Keller Williams, but other brokerages and companies as well. And Francis, congratulations to you on everything that you're doing, not just for the AAPI community, YP, and everything you're doing in your region. So congratulations. Okay,
Thank you.
business for 21 years. Oh my gosh. In real estate, the first 11 years with a different brokerage. And I joined Keller Williams in 2015 as an individual agent. I had reached my ceiling, decided it was time for a change, and Keller Williams was the answer. And this is the company I love so much. I was given the opportunity, tapped on the shoulder by Gary Keller and Brady Sandall in 2022 to co-lead the luxury division for this company. And I have to tell you, I almost said no because I am a true introvert. I just like my bubble. And I realized that the largest real estate franchise brokerage in the world was asking a female Asian to lead one of their largest divisions in the company was something I couldn't say no to. I could say no for myself, but I couldn't say no to my children, for all of you who are following in our footsteps, and the people in our community. So that's the reason I said yes to that role. So I currently lead my team. We have a team of 10. Last year, there was just 2 agents, and we closed $90 million in business, and that's primarily 90% repeats and referrals. We're growing the team now, and so we have a team of 4 agents. We're heavily on the operations side because Gary says the operations truly is your business, because there's always attrition in the team, and as far as agents, but your operations, it's truly your standard bearer of your standards. So we have a director of operations, directors of homes and design, a director of growth, director of marketing, a marketing coordinator, a client concierge, and my EA who tells me where to go and what to do every single day. And so that's who we are. We serve the San Francisco Bay Area.
Wow. That's pretty cool. And last but not least, PJ.
Hello, PJ Santiago. I'm with KW Capital Properties here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I work out of 2 different offices within our network. One of them is in Fairfax, Virginia, which is closer to the airport. The other one is based off of C Street near Capitol Hill, which is near Capitol Hill. I was actually born in Washington, D.C., raised throughout Northern Virginia. I'm the son of Filipino-Chinese immigrants, and I'm really grateful that I found KW because, frankly, they're the best organized and the best equipped when it comes to real estate brokerages and when it comes to real estate franchises across anyone else in the United States. No one really touches them because we are right now facing a period of uncertainty in our market. And your best bet, your strongest ship is going to be with your sales setup with Keller Williams as a platform choice, as your ship of choice. That's why I'm happy to be here, actually. Very happy.
Well, you want to say thank you all for agreeing to do this panel with us. We're very, very thankful. So let's start it off. I've been in the business now for about 6 years, and I've had my bumps and I've had my successes with people, working with people within our community. Talk to us a little bit more about the success and challenges that you've had throughout your careers, working with members of our community. Caroline first, since she has since she has all the experience.
Oh boy. All right. Pull up a chair. This is 21 years of mistakes and learnings. And I come from a very traditional background, right? And so I understand that part. And I stepped into real estate because my parents came from, war. I mean, they went in China in wars, right? And so the thought of assets and holding hard assets was a core belief for them. And so I saw that in the community as well. And so as I grew up in the community and we're starting in real estate, what I realized were that our community's perception of real estate depends on their background, how they were raised, right? So if you talk to our daughter's age now, 27, their perception of real estate and value versus our parents are very different. So I'll share with you some of the learnings. Number one is the language barrier, right? So communication can be difficult if I'm not fluent in their language or their dialect. So language can lead to misunderstandings and misinterpretations. And so when I am referred a client who may speak a different dialect, not quite grasp Mandarin, I'd actually prefer to co-partner, with somebody else who speaks their language or refer out directly. So it's always in the best interest of the client. Second, the cultural differences. Cultural backgrounds may influence their expectations, their preferences, their decision-making. And some cultures might prioritize family involvement in the decision-making process, while other might focus on individual preferences. Housing preferences, such as desire for multi-generational living spaces, architectural styles, neighborhood characteristics, feng shui, right, or vista. So was a learning, and negotiation styles. And every culture is different. Every region is different of how they negotiate. Every generation is different. So understanding that was really important. Their concept of money, right? Their concept of money and what it can buy. So some they're like just buy and hold, some are for appreciation, resale. So understanding what their thought process of that is, and then learn how do they buy and sell in their previous country. And I'll explain why. So I had a client, $6 million, came in and said, I'm ready to buy a place. And I'm like, not yet. You don't even know this area yet. So you're only spending 6 weeks out of the year. So let's buy you a condo first, and then we'll get you something else. Buy them a condo. They got to know the area. They loved it. We did full service concierge for them, helped them prep their home, all of that. The next summer, he says, okay, I'm ready to buy my $6 million house. Fantastic. Spent weeks and weeks with them. And then finally he calls me, says, congrats, I just want to let you know I bought a place. I want to share the good news with you.
Oh,
And I
wow.
went, wait, what? And so after I got to the shock, I asked him, I said, I'm really curious, who did you purchase with? Because I thought we were working together, or I said it more eloquently. He's like, oh yeah, where we're from is whoever finds us a place is the one I work with. Right. So that's some of the learnings I've had.
Yeah.
There you go.
Amy, PJ.
So the second listing I ever had in my career, I almost got fired. The main reason why was because I was thinking about it through a fair housing perspective, how you want to eliminate religious aspects in particular that would alienate the majority of the buyer population here in the DC metropolitan area. And it turns out that my recommendation almost got fired because they were saying that I was doing things in a ungodly way, or in a non-Christian way, or non-Catholic way. And I remember that lesson staying with me from here on out, because yeah, we are going to be following these rules and these laws, but above all else, you have to follow the humanity of the person you're representing. You have to understand their perspective. And that was one lesson I'm grateful I learned early on. I still sold the house, so I'm really grateful for that. But in general, yeah, when it comes to differing customs, I will say that the overall challenges I do face involve the cultural cues that come with these. When it comes to the successes, it's primarily because of my use of technology. I mean, just this year alone, I've had clients that have been closed in Dubai, as well as in Manila, as well as in Hong Kong. And all of them were able to do it because of remote DocuSign, remote document, or companies from attorneys here in the area. That, and also the fact that text message is readily accessible throughout all of the Asian networks, and also the fact that you are going to see more and more people from Southeast Asia side adopt the iPhone as the main device. So when it comes to using FaceTime, it comes to using certain applications, it's nice and streamlined in that manner. And the one thing that I find that is really challenging is actually the time zone difference, because I've actually not woken up early, but stayed up till 3 or 4 in the morning to do buyer consultations, give them an understanding of what's going on with their investments, so on and so forth. And I will say that, I'm right now working with 7 different sellers and 8 different buyers. 10 of them are under active agreement. 4 of them are from the AAPI community internationally. And all 4 of them are sellers that are going to be liquidating their condo assets and their portfolios until later on in the future. So everything set up when it comes to your listing presentation, and what your overall unique service propositions are going to be when it comes to people that are seeking a real estate agent. You're already going to have a heads up when it comes to being a part of the culture and understanding the culture. Having that extra element there would make you pretty much when it comes to getting their business. One more thing to keep in mind, though, is that when you do work with people overseas, they sometimes have a preference to work with someone who has more of presentation that's in line with what's in America and the United States as a whole. So this is where having a partner agent, someone you're building a team with, the main liaison, and then you in the background, just coaching them up and helping them understand those kind of cultural cues that could actually get them into booby trap. I think that when you combine all those factors together, you're going to have a pretty solid package that you can work with when it comes to helping clients.
Right. Yeah. Linda, how about you?
Yeah, what Caroline shared about the $6 million, kind of like they bought with somebody else. That's kind of why I'm celebrating this new thing about we need to make sure we sign a buyer broker agreement now. And it's even easier to get that signed now because we're like, hey, that the whole lawsuit is dictating that, and explaining that to them. Because I think the important thing is, if we don't do that, we could lose business that way. And why do we want to spend all that time and resources? And even in my business, I think I feel forward a lot all the time. A lot of my clients are in general pretty established. And then Chinese, I'm going to speak for the Chinese client. They are very understated in general. So they can tell me like, oh, I want to buy a home like $1 million. But really, they are going to end up buying something 3 or 4 million, possibly. I have a perfect example yesterday. The client said, yeah, I'm seeing all this closing one that is match what I'm looking for. I said, really? I said, well, why don't you send me the one that you just sold that close that match? And she is telling me she wants to look around 2 million. Well, this one was there 3 million. So, a difference of $1 million, there are different variety of home that you can choose from. So I said, well, the one you sent me is 3 million. So that happened quite a bit. I think the key thing is with the clientele I work with, I just communicate very openly from the start. And I always say it needs to be a happy marriage. I always admire Caroline, the high level delivery they do, because earlier this year I sent a referral to her and how they close, how her agent follow out and call me. And I'm just like, I was just so amazed. And I'm like, she is the role model that I want to follow. And, I think with the Chinese client, and especially they tend to be more private. I have client that worth hundreds of $1 million. And guess what? Her credit score is not so good because she pay everything cash. So we also need to educate them the importance of credit in the US. And you earn higher credit score by using a whole lot of credit. It's definitely paying cash is not credit. So those are the things that we educate our client. And they could be different level. They could be entry. They could be high end. And what I really learned is really before I'm like, gosh, like I kind of like what Caroline was saying, buy a condo, get used to the community, and then buy 6 million. Nowadays, I'm just kind of like, if this is what they want to buy, explain everything to them, let them buy it. Because if I don't allow them to buy that, they're going to buy it from somebody else. And this happened to me last year too. He was talking about 8 million, and I'm like, well, why don't you look at this? Why don't you look at that? Guess what? He bought it from somebody else 2 months down the road. And I just taking too much time to explain to him that he's moving to San Diego, the kid's going to go to La Jolla Country Day, all that. And I'm just like, I cannot allow myself to make that mistake. I have done enough time. So I think that it's very important to listen to the client and really what's more important to them. And then Chinese client always tell you they are not in a hurry. They don't have plenty of time. They can rent first, no. If they are looking, they are buying. They are not looking. If they are not buying, they are not looking in general. So I just, I kind of push myself a little more assertive because yes, I'm in real estate, I'm a realtor, but I see myself advisor role, not a self role, right? But I just at times I keep on educating myself, and because I fail forward enough, and I'm probably still gonna fail forward on different things. But I think panel like this, community like this, that we share our know-how, we share our lessons, and we can all be better going forward.
True. Amy?
I love that my fellow panelists shared so much on the micro level. So I guess I'll touch on a little bit on the macro level. So right now, the NHPI community is still receiving a lot of stereotypes that we seem to be a community of very well-established buyers, which is not always the case. When we look nationally at the statistics, a lot of lending institutions, a lot of different programs are targeting their minority programs towards different communities, but they're not including necessarily the ANHPI. So there seems to be a stereotype where people think that, oh, Asian clientele have a lot of cash. There's a lot of funding all the time, which is not always the case. We also have a lot of Asian groups that don't necessarily get the attention that maybe the Chinese, Korean, Japanese communities get, but we have the Hmong, the Laotian, the Filipinos, right? So not everyone is included in some of these programs that are nationally advertised. So this is all work that we can do together. It's a mindset that we need to have together as a collective. But the successes that come from that, right? The successes were, for example, for the longest time on the census, our community was seen as other. We did not have our own checkbox. And that was actually something that was spearheaded by one of our beloved Chicagoan realtors. Also, she's on the board of directors here. Her name is Vicky Salvano with the ARIA which is Asian Real Estate Association of America Association. They all spearheaded that along with a lot of other prominent groups. And now we have a checkbox on the census. The other thing is that NH was recently added, right, in an AANHPI. So it used to be AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander. Now there is the NH, which stands for Native Hawaiian. So we are doing work together, and it's obviously effective. So I just want to encourage everyone, no matter our backgrounds, our walks of life, our status, we can all work together towards rising up and lifting one another up at the same time.
So many good answers. I'm like, oh my gosh. So in what ways have you tried to understand and kind of get the customs of different ethnicities and nationalities within our community? Because for me, whenever I'm in front of any clients who are part of our community, I typically don't do a consult. I just have a conversation where I kind of compare and contrast what they know or what they've did before as opposed to what we're going to do now with this transaction. So Linda, can you start?
Yeah. Are you talking about the client I serve, or are you talking about the entire community?
So the clients that you serve.
The clients I serve, again, going back to Chinese, I actually have all the information package, both hard copy and digital, both in English and Chinese. So I can offer them both package. It starts from how do you find an agent, financing, all the way to closing escrow. So every step, how to hold title, every step is explained. And then, I send them that information before our meeting. A time nowadays, of course, can be Zoom. And then I ask them, what are the expectations? Some clients, they are very savvy that they don't want to for you to go through that. Or I start going through, they want to cut the checks, they want to get you exactly what they want to purchase. So I really, again, ask them, and it's just like, not just Chinese culture, any culture, I ask them, how do they like to be communicated? Do you want to communicate through WeChat? You want to communicate through text? Or you communicate through email? That's what I ask. And then also ask them, what are most important to you? I'm going to ask them a timeline again, even though they are most likely they are like, we are not in a hurry. A lot of time, maybe sometime very specific. He's starting a job July 1st in San Diego. He need to be in by latest by June 20th. Something like that. So I always ask how they can communicate it. I want to ask them if they have purchased property before in San Diego or in the US, how was the experience? How did that go, right? And then what we also do now for our clients is we actually use the First American database to look at all the property they own in state of California. Of course, we can look outside. And then what we also do, and this is about deepen relationship now, we put a portfolio booklet together, and then we communicate to them in writing every 6 months, assuming, let's say they are buying property through me the first time, but they might have already owned property elsewhere in Irvine, in Bay Area, possibly. So that way we are working to shine through different aspects. And then I definitely call my client quarterly. I have client events. I know probably everybody here does that as well. And I continue to believe in deepening a relationship, because a lot of time that's where all the referrals are coming from.
True. Caroline?
To understand different customs of the community, a great book to read is called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. If you have not read that, that's a fabulous book to read. And it profiles 60 countries and their customs, right? So if I see an elderly Chinese woman, I'm not going to go up her and just hug her, right? She's going to be like, what the heck, right? We don't even say I love you to each other. So it's something that we really want to be mindful of. So if you are looking to work in that community, or community other than yours, please read that book. It's very, very helpful. And another thing is just to observe, when we're listening, we're not listening just with our ears, we're listening with our eyes as well. And as they're speaking or we're speaking, what are they signaling to us? The majority of communication, 60% of communication is misunderstood. Can you imagine if there was even a language barrier, right? And the majority of how people listen is through body language and tonality. So understanding, different cultures and their tonality and how they speak is very important. And so by understanding that, ask open-ended questions like, how do you negotiate where you are? Like, how did you negotiate your last purchase? Or how did you go negotiate your last sale? What worked really well for you? Like, what is your ideal outcome? What does your ideal experience look like? They'll start taking the lead and sharing with you how they like to be worked with. So recommendations, read, kiss, bow, or shake hands, be an active listener, and ask great questions. Then you'll get to a great result.
PJ?
My strategy is more in line with an SOI base, sphere of influence from the Red Book. And I was taught early on, from my dad actually, that the easiest way to get past a language barrier or cultural barrier is to actually share a passion. When my dad immigrated from the Philippines after a couple of dictatorships over there, he moved to Washington, D.C. in 1968. And in 1968, the Washington Bullets won their one and only NBA. So it was just pandemonium everywhere. People were going crazy. And my dad, being the way that he was with math, he actually predicted that they would win. And this is during a time when he was looking for a job. He was looking to, use his experience as a civil and construction engineer to actually make it in the district. And fast forward a couple of years later, we have the Washington Commanders, or Washington football team. And during the shortened season, he once again ran the calculation, did the analysis, well before everyone else's time. Yes, Wes Unseld, very good, and Elvin Hayes. But during that time, and he was able to predict that Joe Gibbs would win his first world championship. And lo and behold, he did. And even though his English wasn't great, he was making friends and he was getting opportunities. And it led to the point where he was actually the lead engineer for both the Naval Observatory under George Bush, as well as at the Pentagon. Thankfully, not during 9/11. He was in Quantico at the time. But he was able to develop that network, not because of his understanding of English, his understanding of American culture, but because he gravitated towards his love of math and his love of numbers. And he kind of created a community around that, and they all stuck with him as a result. So I took that example and I started using it in my business. And a good example is the Sakura Matsuri, or the National Cherry Blossom Festival. I love Japanese culture because of Akira Toriyama and all that. But in general, I didn't really have an understanding of it until I started volunteering with it. And as a matter of fact, yesterday was the first day I was out of the house. I was recently hospitalized with a virus issue. And I was actually at the house for the ambassador to Malaysia under the Clinton administration. And he's actually asking if I would consider selling one of the properties before he moves over to maybe. So he's going to move to Chicago soon. So knowing that and understanding that we were all focused on a certain task at hand, everything else kind of came naturally to the point where I learned about the custom of Japanese bowing, where I learned about the work culture and how they work 6 hours a week, where I learned about how it was considered taboo to not go out to drinks with your counterpart at work because of that fact that you're trying to get away from them, but it showed that you're not a team player. It shows your overall focus is not aligned with the vision of that business in Japan. I wouldn't have learned those things if I didn't actually volunteer and serve my community correctly. Another example is there's a very strong contingent of Filipino college graduates here in the DC area, primarily because we do have the Philippine Embassy over on Bataan Way in Northwest DC. And we have people coming in here from UP, University of Philippines, USD, Santo Tomas, Mapua, Santo Tomas like my dad, and then La Salle University, de La Salle. And I started sponsoring the bowling team and I started working with them. And my very first multi-generational house deal came from that league. And then my last one came from that league. I mean, it was only like $7 million in sales, but still, I didn't actually engage in that activity to spend quality time with my dad. I probably wouldn't have gotten this business that got to where I am. So, and if you engage in the community, you come from contribution, your curiosity is still in play. All these other elements that you feel like you're missing on, that you feel like you're going to stub toes on, so to speak, they're all going to be resolved naturally because you generally care about the well-being. And I think that you're going to see it today with gaming, you're going to see it with religious beliefs in churches, you're going to see it with the NBA finals and all that stuff. And it's all going to be there. And as long as you put the priority on the shared activity and the passion that you all have together, everything else will come naturally and it'll be a learning experience. So it's a little different from what was asked, but I found it to be very successful throughout my 15 years in this business.
And thanks, PJ. Amy?
For me, I found that there are two things that work the best. The first is to immerse yourself into the cultures. And the second is to never assume that everyone from one community have the same beliefs. So regarding immersing yourself into the culture, watch films. I love K-dramas. I've watched my fair share of them. Eat the foods, right? Talk to the people in the community. Recently, I had some clients of Nigerian descent, and I told them, I said, oh, I love jollof rice, which is a traditional rice dish. And they're like, you know about jollof rice? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, do you make it? Invite me over. And that instantly sparked a new connection. I have Filipino clients that are older than me. So as a form of respect, I don't call them by their names. I call them tita and tito, which is a sign of respect when you call someone older than you in the Filipino culture. But to my second point, never assume that everyone has the same beliefs. I'm Chinese. So to Caroline's statement earlier about feng shui, which is a way of ensuring that there's prosperity and success in the home that you buy or in the business that you do, I have learned to stop assuming that all Chinese people have the same feng shui beliefs. If you try to sell my parents a home, they have a list of 1,000 things that cannot be at a house. And I kid you not, it is impossible to find them a house. But if you ask someone else from the same community, they're going to say, Amy, we don't even know what that means. We don't even have those beliefs. So never assume, right? So immerse yourself, don't be afraid, and never assume that everyone is the same.
Yeah, that's all true. I think I've gone throughout my whole career kind of just maneuvering around, but everything that was said right now was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I have to do my homework, I guess. Um, so multi-generational households in the Asian community is a really, really big thing, right? I know for me and for a lot of my friends, I've helped them buy homes and I've kind of, I guess, tried to find the homes that have the in-law suites and everything for their families and their mothers and fathers. Um, you know, how is that something that you and your clients actively look for, or what's your experience like working with multi-generational families and buying properties or selling properties?
That's,
Uh,
I'll take that. So like Amy said, we don't want to put everybody in a box, right? But that's one of the first considerations and questions that we ask. Who else will be living with you, right? Or who else will be visiting for an extended period of time? And that's when you know whether or not. And also, like, what are your plans for your parents or your grandparents? So through that line of questioning, you'll be able to identify what their goals are. And not, so when they do need multi-generational living, we're always looking for ground floor suites, right? Or wings. And some of them are looking for ADUs, but some of them are like, do not show me an ADU because my parents will be insulted that I'm not in the main house, right? And I mean, that's a total insult. Like, why am I not in the main house? Some people are like, they want their own kitchen. So it definitely by asking those questions and how they live, how do you plan to live in here? Tell us about your lifestyle. That will direct your search with your clients. That's what we found to be successful.
PJ, you had your hand up earlier.
Oh yeah, so I was actually able to double the number of clients that were looking for multi-generational house properties from years now because of one X factor. It's because of my a relationship that I have with a 1031 lifetime. Here's something that's pretty interesting. You sell an investment asset, right? And you actually purchase another investment asset with, and you satisfy the 2 out of the 5 year term from parents. Not only could you turn that property into primary residence, but your tax liability, the amount of money you have due in taxes, is like us when you go through a 31 like that. And I don't know if people just talk the LaSalle Bowling League or if they're just talking because of the profit work that I do. But a lot of people figured that out very quickly. So one thing that I don't think was mentioned earlier that I think is very important to keep in mind is people from multiple identities within the AAPI community, they talk and the community hears about it very fast, especially with the emergence of social media. So I think it was a scenario where I was able to pull that deal off with them legally, where they could actually not have to worry about like, $8,000 in tax liability. And then their game plan would be to actually rent it up for 2 years, and then for remaining 3, they would go and give it to a grandchild and live in there with them, so that they get actually live as a primary residence, and they don't have to worry about the liability off the. So one thing I'm noticing as well is that I've had clients shoot down properties because of certain materials that are found in the attic. I know in your part of the country, you're probably talking about, fiberglass insulation, the pink stuff, and so forth. But there's some parts here that were built in the 1950s and 60s, especially the federal style buildings, where you had these certain elements there that were carcinogenic in nature, creates emissions on some kind of. And I had clients that were within that group of multi-generational households on the properties because they had ambitions to build up, build back, and the sides, and a driveway and a garage. And if you did all those things, your air would be contaminated with an active carcinogen. If your clients are international, having an international tax advisor is very true. I'm not an expert in that world, but when it comes to the domestic side, I am seeing that here. One thing that I'm starting to recognize as well when it comes to multi-generation households is that they're actually, when you get to a certain age, there's starting to dwindle. They're actually starting to be less of them because you're starting to see more and more people who are of a certain age, instead of retiring in America, they retire in their home countries, Vietnam, and in Thailand, primarily because the healthcare costs are considerably less expensive than here, especially in the Washington area and then throughout the United States as a whole and in Canada. Even though Canada technically does have universal healthcare, I know that they do have a lot of strain when it comes to the pharmaceutical. In any case, knowing that getting a nurse there is considerably less expensive, getting a treatment there is considerably less expensive, you have a much more Americanized tone when it comes to certain parts of nations. I'm starting to recognize that more people are going to be staying in the United States, and then their parents are going to be retiring out to the Philippines, to Thailand, to Taiwan in some sense, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I see that as a potential trend that we need to pay attention to as real estate agents. I'm so thankful that I'm with KW because we have Keller Williams Philippines. I have an office in Ortigas, all of Asia. We also have our offices throughout Southeast Asia and Asia as a whole. And honestly, that's one of like the 5 things that makes this place easy to love. So I love working here. I love being part of the KW family. So knowing that that opportunity is going to be there, knowing that the trend's going to be there, just understand that being a KW agent will give you that competitive advantage versus competition, knowing that you can accomplish those things with.
Thanks, PJ. Linda.
I'm going to use my closing today as example, multi-general living. I met them through my open house, so they are expressing their interest to purchase. So I simply asked them, Caroline touched on this already, like how many people are going to live in, the property you're purchasing, how many people will be living there? It's grandmother, the couple, and then 2 young kids. Then the next question, because where I am, Carmel Valley, is pretty much a school district. So I asked them where's the daughter going to school now? It's important that she have to stay in like elementary school. So then we have to narrow it down on that area. And then, who is the grandmother need to be on first floor, or the grandmother, where do they plan to have the grandmother live? The grandmother have to walk the granddaughter to the school every day. So then, location of home is important. So things like that, and that I just use that as example because we're closing escrow on that deal today. And that's basically, the necessities, the locations, the member of the family, and what's are important to them. They end up buying a community. The grandmother has lots of friends on living in that community. It's all still in Common Valley, but that was the driving force for them to make that final decision. So I think that everyone have covered quite a bit of very similar thinking. So thank you.
Amy?
I'll just share that I've started to notice a lot more of my clients looking for multi-generational homes, and this isn't excluded to, or I should say this isn't exclusive to the AANHPI community. So a lot of my clientele that don't identify as Asian American are actually looking for homes that have either that ADU in some states or that extra space to build a coach home for their parents. And if we look at builders, they're actually integrating a lot of first floor suites now for that ease of access. And then you have more bedrooms on the second floor. So we think of multi-generational living oftentimes with our community, but it's actually expanding because people are living longer. Family units are becoming larger and larger. And when people are living longer, they tend to be healthier, generally speaking, which means that if we look at certain communities, senior living communities actually are experiencing a lower growth because the people that normally move into there when they're maybe in their 60s or 70s are no longer doing so. They're staying with their families, and their families are actually buying homes. I actually have a client who is in her 80s, and she bought her home with me because she refused to move in with her family, and she refused to move into one of those senior living communities. So that was really insightful. But at the same time, we have units that are like, oh, let's all stick together. I am one prime example. My parents live with me. I have a younger sister. She has special needs, and she lives with me as well. So my parents get the master bedroom on the first floor suite. I get my privacy on the second level.
Something that we're doing, I love that, Amy. Something that what we're doing and showing some people are like, we want to live close by or live together, but we just can't afford it. So we're showing them duplexes, so they can live in one, the other family can live in the next door, or they can rent it out while, in preparation for mom and dad or grandma or grandpa or something. So don't be afraid to show multi-units as an option.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this next question is a little bit selfish on my end because I'm kind of experiencing this from a friend of mine and her aunt. So how is it that you go about educating a family where there's multiple generations involved in the purchase? Meaning, in my case, it's my friend, her dad, and also her aunt, and I think maybe her grandma too, wanting to buy a 4 unit for all of them. What steps or what do you do to educate everyone? Because most of the time, a lot of the elders that I've spoken to kind of don't understand it or don't get the concepts that I'm explaining to them. So how do you go about that? Caroline?
Who's writing the check? No, that's not what I've learned also, so this is from my personal experience. My husband and I, we scrimped and scaved to finally get into this neighborhood of our dreams. This is about 25 years ago. And my father-in-law talked us out of it. And then that house doubled in 5 years. And that was because he didn't understand. And I wasn't quite in the industry yet. So what I've learned is ask for a meeting, ask for a meeting where all the decision makers are together and go through the entire, so there's nothing misunderstood. No question is unanswered. There's no he said, she said, they said, right? So don't be afraid to take the lead and ask for the meeting because they're coming to you as you're the consultant, you're the expert. So sometimes we let them lead, but we need to be in control and lead that meeting and do it as soon as possible. Gather all the decision makers together and just say, we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to share with you exactly how this is going to look and what the processes are, here to answer any questions, so that you start off easy. right?
Yeah.
So you're not having the difficult conversations later on.
I want to second that. 2 weeks ago, I just had that experience. Again, family dynamics. So I asked, can we have a meeting in person? So after Gary Mastermind, I flew in 7:30 and 9. I'm at the kitchen table. I know there are 3 of them plus me. So I prepared 4 packages. Each one get a package. And the first question I asked, who can make a decision? Who was signing? And then the older sister says she's the one signing. I'm like, okay, need to pay attention to her. But we go through the whole package. Everybody has one package. They already received digital one. And then, we got to sort it out. So it's much easier going forward. Ask everyone's preference about communication beyond that, and ask what's most important to them, also their timeline. So again, it just, I think it comes down to communication, but it's how we communicate, right? I mean, that's where the fine art is. That's where the fine point is. But I really think that we need to know who's the decision maker right away.
I love this idea about having a meeting. I would say leading up to the meeting, perhaps having a one-on-one conversation with the person that is writing the check to ask him or her about how is the dynamic with the family, right? How is communication? Is there a family member that maybe isn't necessarily the decision maker on paper, but is going to provide their input and be very adamant? Maybe it's like an elderly family member usually, right? So maybe having that knowledge ahead of time is going to be helpful as you navigate that conversation. And when you're in that conversation, not only are you a consultant, but you're part therapist, you're part educator, you're part everything, right? So if you feel that it's getting a little tense or going a little sideways, chime in, say, hey, grandpa, she's really actually considering and caring about you. Look at what she's doing. Wow, she's thinking about where your bedroom's going to be. And you want to remind the people that are feeling like their opinions aren't being heard that they are valid, that they are important. And oftentimes that will help the conversation go in the direction you want it to.
PJ?
So this usually takes place, this meeting, right around the home inspection period or a time when we go over the next steps with buyer, assuming there's buyers. And what I usually do is I form what's referred to as a analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. So good example. So there was this one property that was 4 blocks away from the Supreme Court. And when I looked at the strengths, I said it's a row house, 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, and we're right now under contract for $255,000 below taxes. Appraisal value, not some random arbitrary Zillow estimate. Assessed value. That's in the DC government. So I would always put that in there as a breakdown of the strengths. The weaknesses, I would say, it's a row house. You don't have that much space for expansion, so you can't put a garage, you can't build on it. And then when it comes to opportunities, I'd say when there's a situation in this road, what you have to think about is A, B, and C. Remember when you used to call this place home back in the 50s or the 80s or the 2000s? It's not the same anymore. Back when you were at the World Bank, it used to be like this, and now it's more like this. And then I actually use facts and data because I can't give too much to the point where I might be accidentally and unintentionally infringing upon browsing rights. So I just basically make them aware of the data and the facts. Then when it comes to the threats, that's when I talk about stuff that's going on with the economy, stuff that's going on with what's in place. And I learned that transparency of what could go wrong and what could not work in our culture isn't selling me away from the house being sold or the client. It's actually selling me to the parents, knowing that I thought these things through already and I'm looking out for their daughter or son's best interests. And I recognize that they just want someone that'll take care of them and who will be there to ensure that they don't make the same mistake that they made decades ago. And as long as I show proof to validate that fact, they're going to keep on working with me and they're going to keep on trusting me with their real estate needs by selling investments. So that's typically how I do it. And it kind of comes in like forced in through like we're usually at the home inspection and we're talking and they ask me, oh, what's the crime here? Like I'm not allowed to discuss crime, but I can tell you to call the police department and the information. Like, okay, so what do you think about the overall investment grade? These are all the rents that took place in this area. This is the overall ROI that you can have with the asset. This is what you can actually count on your daughter making when it comes to your overall rental revenue when she gets to this like just need to make sure that you make them as informed as possible so they know that the person that's working with them is knowledgeable and is once again looking out for their best interests.
So we're down to our last question. And I always like asking this question, especially with Asians, because um I have a really funny story. When I told my mom that I wanted to be a realtor, she gave me maybe two or three options for different universities to become an LVN or an RN. And she was like, no, you're not doing that. There's no security. No, we're not. Never. Like, you're not going to make it. Luckily now she's on board, which is pretty cool. So I would love to hear your stories about how you got into the business and why you got into the business.
I can take that. First, well, actually, for me, it was really an accident. My background is CPA with Ernst Young. I was with the client, Nicholas Apage. I was as a finance manager. They got bought by Allianz, so I can go to PIMCO, which I don't want to do because that's where my ex-in-law, their house can see the PIMCO building in Newport Beach. No, I don't want that. So I took the severance package, and like they told me 6 months ahead, the package is not a 6 month. So I thought, since 18, I want to be in real estate because I have interest in the investment side of it. So I'm like, why not do that? Oh my God, my parents, my family was so against it. They're like, why would you go from a big four accounting firm CPA with that background and now you want to be a realtor? Like anybody in the world can be a realtor, like why do you want to do that? That's such a step down. There's no barrier entry. I mean, I should say low barrier entry. So they were so against it. A lot of my friends write me off and all that. And I'm just like, and at that time, my brother asked me like, well, if you want to get into real estate, like how much, what would be the minimum balance, like I make that stay? I said, well, at that time, I make about 100,000. So I say, maybe close to 100, I'll be fine, right? And I would try 6 months because I get 6 months of severance. And then I'll try 6 months. If I couldn't make it, then I can always go back to accounting. So I think the first year I did close to 200,000, just by referral. I had two younger brothers, each one referred one of their friends to me, and I just built my business that way, 100% referral from day one, and that was it. And I mean, once I started really making money, oh my God, everybody changed their mind. They never speak against me in the real estate. I'm still the only family member in real estate. I don't have any other family member in real estate. I'm not sure if I changed the way they look at realtors, they know like realtor works a lot, like because they look at me that I'm working all the time. At the same time, I live a very good, very fun life. So that's it. And I really got into real estate by accident. Really have no plan, all this. And honestly, I will tell you, it's it's a joke. I direct my brother to go to, I think at that time was Century 21. And then they have this, new agent orientation. And he said, and he was so good. He's like, you know what? You guys are getting into the business. You need to make sure you have 6 months of funds available because you need 6 months to survive because you're not going to have any closing, right? So the way I took it, I told my brother, I said, oh my God, we cannot come to this company because you come to this company that you cannot get paid for, you will not have any business for 6 months. No, we cannot come here. I mean, I cannot join this. I didn't know most people don't have business in 6 months, but what I did, I start working in in May, and then I have 7 closing in July. And then in September, I took 3 weeks off. So I just, a lot of time when people tell me things, I just think in my mind, like, well, that could be somebody else's scenario. It doesn't have to be mine. And then for me to achieve, I want to go to, let's say that time I'm going to South America for 3 weeks, and I need to go. I'm leaving that time, so I need to get the deal done. I didn't even think anything of it, So I'm so grateful to be in real estate business. We definitely have our up and down. We definitely have our challenges. I think roll ahead, we have more challenges right now, and we just have to live through that and get our fair share. And again, I'm so grateful with Julia to be our ringleader in a way and promoting all the diversity within KW. And I want to thank Caroline to be the the leader on the stage, and then just so proud to have an Asian presence on the leadership team. And I am so admire Gary Keller and the leadership team to always bring so much value to us at the top agent mastermind, and continue to move us forward. And what we need to do is the basic lead generation, lead follow-up. And real estate is contact sports. So we just, and also, of course, in this group, we should definitely refer business to each other. I definitely look at, the KW group, and I always refer to KW first. I mean, and I literally ask that question, and some agents say, well, I left KW, will you still refer to me? I said, why don't you come back to KW? I'll definitely refer you more. But anyway, so thank you again for the last question. I hope that I share my personal experience, and even though my family all against it, I'm pretty sure they are very proud, they're very happy, and then for what I have done in the real estate business.
Amy.
Like Linda, I am also an accidental realtor. I think when when I went to school and the teachers would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never said realtor. I probably didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even know what a real estate agent was, right? So I got my bachelor's and my master's from, I went to USC for my master's, and then I came back to the Chicagoland area. I'm sorry?
I'm also a Trojan.
Oh my God. Yeah. Hopefully there are no Bruins here, but just kidding. So I came back to the Chicagoland area and went through several career changes, opened a restaurant, and then got bored and got my real estate license. COVID hit, so I sold the restaurant, and I was like, well, I have this license, let's see what happens. And that's how I became a full-fledged agent. My mother had been actually encouraging me to become a realtor throughout all these years. And I was like, no, what is that? That sounds boring. She loves houses. But my dad was against it. He was like, you're not going to be successful. What will you do? You're not going to be able to make it. And then now he doesn't say anything, right, Linda? Now they don't say anything. They're like, oh, so very much an accident, but I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for all of you on the panel, and all of you that are in attendance, and especially Julia for spearheading all of this. It's such an honor to be here with all of you today. Thank you.
And PJ?
During the housing crisis, work as foreclosure prevention specialist for a nonprofit housing council. It was really rewarding. I didn't get paid, but it was probably one of the happiest times knowing that I could help somebody, and started dissecting things a little bit. I realized that when I looked at the contract signed, there was a lot of underhanded shadiness that took place, and it was wrong. And my family was freaking out because I wasn't making any money. Still on my severance from a previous hedge fund consultant. And I just came to the realization that the only person that can guarantee that a home buyer and home seller will not get taken advantage of, will not get the rug pulled over their head, will not get run down is me. I'm the only one that can guarantee it on my side that they're not going to get. Kind of what inspired me to work. And no one believed in me in the beginning. My own mom shot me down, and she's in the mortgage world. But I did have one person that did believe in me, and when I capped my rookie year, I ended up using that cap money for an engagement ring, and we were very good. So I really can't justify and talk about my life and the success I have today if it wasn't for my wife now, and it wasn't for the risk I took to be a real estate agent back then. And it's the rest is history.
Damn, that's like your wife.
I know. I got lucky.
Caroline?
Yeah, our parents love us, right? So the people that love us the most are the ones that don't want us to get hurt, and they tell us you can't do it. So that's why we do it. My parents, like I said, they were active investors, and I was the one who always asked to ride along and look at property with them. And I didn't understand really what it meant, but the fact that you could build a a net worth and while housing people was really interesting to me. And I used to ride around looking at open houses and report back. And so when people were reading like Tiger Beat and Teen Vogue, I was reading Homes and Land. And and my dad was like, "Oh, you're going to be like a psychologist one day," or I wanted to be a designer. And now in this world, you're kind of both, right? And all my life, people are like, "You should be in real estate. You should be in real estate." And I had a financial role, and then a consulting role, and then I had my own baby products business. And then finally, my husband looked at me, he's like, "You need to be in real estate." I'm like, "I'll do it part-time," you know, and then there's no such thing as part-time. And that was 21 years ago. And so I've loved it. And I remember reading the CCNRs one time, like really reading the old ones in my parents' neighborhood. And it said at that time, and I don't know if I can use this word, Julia, so, if I can't, please bleep it out. But it said, "No Chinaman in the neighborhood past 5 o'clock unless you're a domestic servant." And so when I read that, I was like, wow, like how, and this is written in the 30s, 40s. And so how far we've come. So I'm really proud to be somebody who's selling homes in that neighborhood. I framed it and I put it up on their wall. And to have, help our community, everyone, have the joy of home ownership. So that's my story.
Wow. Well, this is the end of our panel. I want to thank Linda, Caroline, Amy, and PJ, Julia, and KWDEI for helping us get this started and get this thing happening today. Thank you everyone else for coming. Yeah, see you guys later. Thank you again.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.